This is Road Noise, episode number 27, Leaving Your Legacy. Hello again and welcome to Road Noise Life 1 mile at a time. I'm your host, Michael Blackston. If you're hearing the sound of something under my voice, that's just the sound of the road. Don't worry about it. You're sitting in the passenger seat alongside me as we travel all over the Southeast on my commute to work. Right now I'm between Hamilton, Alabama and Jasper, Alabama, but I'm actually going on past Jasper. I got to work in Jasper tomorrow, but I'm going past Jasper into Birmingham because I've got to pick up a check first thing in the morning in Birmingham, and I'm just going to spend the night there, pick up my check, cash it, and then come on back to Jasper. It's been a crazy, crazy week for me, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show, but I want to get to the topic for this episode. And I really want to get to the topic for this episode because it's been hard to get this episode recorded in the first place. The topic is leaving a legacy, and it kind of came to me off the top of my head just a minute ago. I tried recording 2 separate episodes of the Road Noise podcast for episode 27 yesterday, and I got through most of both of them before I just wasn't feeling it. And I stopped those recordings and deleted them. Almost an hour and a half worth of recording, I think, before I just said, you know what, I'm not feeling recording anything today, and I shut it down. And I realized that as this is being recorded, it's Thursday evening, and tomorrow is Friday, and if you are someone who's expecting a new episode to be released, you're going to be looking for it, and I wanted to get something in, and I picked up the microphone and said, now what do I want to talk about? Because the first thing I was going to do was talk about networking as a solution to any project you have, not just in business but in your personal life, and I do think that that's a good topic to get into, but it's one that's going to need a few more notes taken and a little more thought put into it because I rambled a lot. Then I decided I was just going to tell you some stories about my childhood, and that's going to come at a later time too, but I just wasn't feeling it there. And then it hit me as I was just thinking about different things, and I was thinking about this podcast and what it means to me, what it means to you, and what it's going to mean to my children. And I thought it's kind of one of the things I'm doing to leave a legacy in my life. It's an audio journal that I'm doing on top of written journals that I'm doing to leave to my kids and my wife and my grandkids and whoever in the future of my ancestry, gets their hands on it. What kind of legacy am I leaving? Well, I'm doing it through a lot of different ways. I write, I record, and those are the 2 main ways, and I write a couple of different things. I write a blog, I write my journals, and I write books and stuff like that, but I started thinking maybe that's a good topic to talk about. Maybe it's something that you might want to have in the back of your mind. What kind of legacy are you leaving for your future generations? And if you haven't thought about it, maybe now's the time to think, how would you like to do that? There are several ways that you can kind of leave your mark on history. I mean, the things you do nowadays with the internet, if you put anything online that is in direct relation to you, it's going to be there. But of course, millions of things are being put on the internet every day. It can get lost in all of that. So in order to leave a good legacy, I think you need to do something specific and lasting. And again, there's several ways you can do it. The first thing that comes to mind is physically writing stuff down. Maybe you've got kids, maybe you are older and have kids and grandkids, and you'd like them to think, or you'd like them to know what you're thinking at this moment and moving forward. If you haven't started journaling now, that's a great way to do it. Journaling. You can hit up one of the dollar stores and get a journal for next to nothing and start filling it up. When I first started journaling, and I stopped for a minute, and I need to pick them back up. I have them in the back of my car. Things get so busy, I tend to forget sometimes, and I'll go through times when I'm doing a lot of journaling, and then I'll go through wide spreads of time. And when I go back and read the last one I did, I'll go, wow, I can't believe it's been that long since I've written anything. but I have a journal for my wife, a journal for my daughter, and a journal for my son. 3 separate journals. And when I first started doing it, I was doing it when I would be on the road, and it gets lonely and I miss them, and I think that's a way I can connect with them on a daily basis. When I sit down at a restaurant to eat, I'll take the journals in and I'll write them something. And at first I just kind of wrote until I was done writing, and it was wearing me out. I'm an artist by trade, and what I do when I travel is I use my hand all day, every day. It's scratching into stone with a vibrating or rotating tool that scratches into the stone. You can imagine that my hand is tired by the end of the day just from that. So I decided that instead of writing long details in 3 different journals about my day, I would write just a nugget, maybe half a page, even a third of a page each day, and date it, and just quick nuggets about my day, just letting them know that I was thinking about them, what was on my mind in regards to them. And that became a real good way to do it. And that may be something you could think about doing. When you've got some spare time, keep a journal on you and the people that you would like to leave your legacy for. Write it down. Tell them what you're thinking at this given moment. The current events, you can jot that down, especially if it's a day that something major in history is happening, like a presidential election or something historical that has happened. Jot it down in there, like, this happened today, and here's what I'm thinking about that. What an amazing tribute to history, an amazing thing to look back. Think about your great-grandchildren. For instance, say you were journaling on 9/11. Say it happened, you were having a lot of emotion, you were frightened, you were angry, all of the emotions that we had when the towers fell and the planes crashed and the attack happened. All of that stuff we were riding in a wave of emotion. Imagine if you were journaling that day, and I wasn't at the time, I wish I was now, but imagine you were, and 3 generations later, when this thing is history, just like for me, D-Day or the attack on Pearl Harbor, it's from the history books, and I see things on the internet, and but I wasn't there. I love to hear the stories from the people who were there, to hear what they were actually feeling, what went through their minds, what was in their heart on that day. It's a great way, journaling, to record that for your future generations and to give them a piece of not only your history, but of your heart right as it was happening. And now that I think about that, this just kind of popped into my head about the specific days in history on things that happened like that. It just popped into my head. I want to make sure I keep a journal with me at all times so that I can jot down exactly what I was feeling when major things occur in history. So writing down your feelings and your thoughts, and then maybe as you fill out a book, put it in a safe deposit box or something, and just have it there for your future generations. It's priceless. You can't put a price on something like that. That's the first way that I would suggest that maybe you do that. Another way that you could do it is exactly what I'm doing now. And it doesn't have to be a podcast that you release to anybody, but now, anyone who has a computer, you don't even need a computer. You can do it on your phone. You can record messages with your voice. It doesn't have to be broadcast. You don't have to have a worldwide audience. You can aim this just at family and friends in the future, but how about a daily recording of what's going on today, how you're feeling today, or at least at major occasions, and again, things that happen in history. Make recordings, save them as an MP3, burn them on a disc, and put them in a safe deposit box. I can't tell you, as someone who is an audiophile, someone who loves the art of recording audio and finding different ways to enhance it and do things with it, for someone like me, I can't tell you what a gift that would be if I found out that I had audio files from my grandpa or my father when they were my age or younger. In fact, my family, when I was growing up, was a very musical family. And there were times we'd get together with the guitars, and I had an uncle that brought a snare drum, and he would pull out his harmonica, and a couple of family members, like I said, had guitars, and they'd come and we'd just jam. It was always old-time country music, and as a kid, it really didn't interest me. But now, when I get my hands on one of the old tapes that they had stuck in a tape recorder and hit record, and I realize I've got that history, what a fantastic way to relive your ancestry. Those moments can never be taken away if you record them and keep them safe. It's something that again is priceless. Now, I am going to say that if the noise under my voice gets rather loud here, just be patient. I'm coming on a part of the road that is kind of chomped up. It's on 78 corridor, and they're doing a lot of road construction, and they've kind of ground it up, getting ready to repave it, and so it may be a little bit louder at times, and you may hear, just like that, you may hear some extra little stuff under my voice that it kind of can get irritating. I'm going to try, hopefully, not to do that. I've tried to pick a stretch of road where there won't be too awful much of that before I get done with the recording. But anyway, my wife has an old tape of her late brother playing the piano. There's 5 or 6 different small clips of songs that he would play, and he just sat at the piano and started playing them, and he hit record and recorded them on a tape. And there's only one surviving tape of that. Well, there was not surviving. There weren't any but one made. There was only one made, and she has it. And I found it the other day, and I plugged it in and burned it to converted it to MP3 through my sound equipment, and I'm planning on giving it as a gift to her sister. Kayla, my wife, already has it through me, but her sister doesn't even know this thing exists, and she's going to get this CD of her late brother playing the piano as a gift, and it's going to mean a lot to her because her sister loves tradition, and she loves stuff like that. It will mean a lot to her, I'm positive, and I'm going to get that to her in the next couple of weeks. Things like that you can't buy things like that. And so maybe when you leave your legacy, maybe the things you have to say can be done in an audio form or video. We've done writing, we've done audio, and now I'm going to talk about video. You don't have to put it on YouTube, but if you've got a smartphone or an iPad or even just a cheap webcam, even just the webcam that comes attached to your laptop if you've got it, any way you've got like that, if you have a way to video yourself, maybe you would consider sitting in front of it and just pouring out your heart to your future generations in front of a video. I would love to be able to know that I had old video of my family looking at me saying to my future generations, here's what was going on, here's what I'm thinking, or to my son, to my grandson. That would mean so much to me. So consider videoing it. You don't have to have perfect lighting. You don't have to have perfect sound. As long as you can see you and you can hear you, that's all that matters. That's all they're going to care about. It doesn't have to be a perfect studio setting. You don't have to care for the sound of your voice or the way you look on video. It's not about that. It's about leaving a legacy. It's about leaving something for your future generations that they can say, that was my dad, that was my mom, or that was my granddad, that was my grandma. And they cared enough to do a little something and leave this for me. It's something that, no, you don't have to do it, but I just think it's a great way to do it. I'm passionate about it. And I've said before, when I first started doing this show, I think in the very first introductory episode, that's part of what I do this show for, so that I can archive all of this stuff, and my son and my daughter and their kids can go back in the future, if they want to, and listen to hours of their grandpa or of their dad talking about the things that were on his mind, the things that meant something to him. So I'm going to tell you to consider journaling to leave a legacy. You may say, I don't have a legacy. I mean, I have a boring life. I work a 9-to-5 job. I come home. I don't buy it. I think everybody has a legacy they can leave, a story they can tell. It may be boring to you, but to those who don't know you and have never heard your stories, I guarantee you'll keep them enwrapped. I would love a video or an audio or even something written of my granddad, who is passed now, telling me stories from his life. He was a man of few words. He didn't speak a lot. I rarely knew what he was thinking. It would mean so much to me now to be able to have something like that. My grandmother, his wife, is still alive. And so now I like to ask her questions that I know are going to lead her into a story about something that happened in her life. And I wish so much she would allow me to stick a phone between us and record it. I know I could do that without her knowing it, but I just don't feel like that would be respectful. She doesn't want to be recorded. She doesn't like that. So now I have to listen to these stories and hope that I can record them in my mind so that one day I can tell them. My aunt, my grandmother's youngest daughter, has started to write some stuff and put it on Facebook about things that my grandma says. So those are being recorded through her, and I'm kind of stepping back and letting her record those things. But you have a story to tell. I don't care what you think. It'll be interesting to somebody. And so you may not want to do anything like what I'm talking about, but if you're considering maybe you would like to, but you just don't think you have a story to tell, start at the beginning. Start at your earliest memory and just start talking and telling stories. Imagine your great-great-great-grandchild sitting across a table from you and saying, "Grandpa, tell me about when you were a kid. Grandma, tell me about how you and Granddad met." It's neat. I mean, that's really all it is. It's neat, but it's something that you can leave. It's a legacy that you can leave. It's your story, and you are unique, and your story is unique. Get it down somehow. I don't want to leave this world without having my story been told. It's just the way I am. So if that's something that you think would be interesting for you, a fun project for you to do, or something for you to start, especially the easiest way is just the journal. Keep a journal with you. Write 3 or 4 lines a day. 3 or 4 lines a day, every day. Or even every other day, or on the weekend. Just when the mood strikes, just writing something down and leaving it for those who follow you. It's a wonderful thing, and it's a gift. I promise you, it's a gift. So I told you that this week was an interesting week. One of the reasons it's just interesting is just because it's been so busy. I started Monday morning. I headed to Alabama, and I knew I had a lot of work, but when I got there, some of the work wasn't there. One of the stones had to be brought in from Georgia, where I live, basically following me in, and they supposedly went and got it, and it'll be there tomorrow. And then one of the places I was supposed to go called and said, well, now it's a no-go. The customer wants to be there, and they're out of town. So I called them back and told them, well, let your customer know that it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks probably before I can get back. We had the schedule for now, and now if they are canceling on me, I can't just come back at their beck and call. It's going to be several weeks before I can get back. And the monument company said, okay, I'll tell them. Well, I went ahead, and I knew I had another customer down the road. I had to fill in Wednesday's work somehow if I could, so that I wouldn't be in Alabama twiddling my fingers all day on Wednesday. I wouldn't lose a day of work, because I have to stay through the end of the week to wait on this other stone that's coming from Georgia. And I called my other company, and it turns out they had a couple of little things and said, yeah, I've got a couple of things for you to do, and you can come do those. So I scheduled that, and then I got to the hotel, and the customer who had canceled on me calls back and says, now, because you said you were going to be 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later, she said, go ahead and do it. So then I had to turn around and reschedule to go to the original one on Wednesday and move everything up for the new one that I'd scheduled on Thursday and squeeze everything else for the rest of the week into Friday and possibly Saturday. So my week, which I had hoped would be Friday afternoon leaving, is now squeezed really tightly into probably not leaving till late Saturday afternoon. And I worked to complete all of this other stuff for this new customer that I had called to replace stuff with. When I got there, they had another stone that had come in since I had called them that I could do, and I squeezed that in. I went out to the cemetery and etched 3 doves on a stone that was already standing out in the cemetery for them, and I did that at 7 o'clock tonight. There was just enough light to get it done, and I did. And now I'm on my way to Birmingham because the customer on Wednesday, the guy who signs the checks, his daughter was having her baby, and he wasn't there to sign the check, so he got to sign it today, and now I've got to go pick it up first thing in the morning in Birmingham, and then drive all the way back an hour to Jasper to get started working. So it's just been a crazy, crazy week. I bought a new theme for my blog. I bought a theme from Thrive Themes for my blog, and I just didn't like the way it was working. I tried, and I was learning little by little, but it just seemed like I was spinning my wheels in the mud. I couldn't get it to do really what I wanted it to do, and I'm not tech savvy. I'm not the guy who's got all of this knowledge about computers and writing code and stuff like that. One of the things I liked about the Wix builder when I was running my website through Wix.com was that it was a drag and drop builder. The editor was so easy to use. I could size anything up the way I wanted to, drag it in there, drop it in there, and boom, it was ready to go. Everything was just a monkey could do it. And I needed my WordPress theme to be that way. And I was listening to Daniel J. Lewis on the Audacity To Podcast yesterday morning. Was it yesterday morning? Yeah, it was yesterday morning, and he was talking about themes. Great themes for podcasts. And I started listening to it, and he started talking about a company called Themify and how they had great themes that were ultimately drag and drop type builders that you could use to make your podcast website on WordPress really easy if you wanted complete control and you needed that type of a thing. If you were not a coder or a programmer or anything, you just needed to be able to drag and drop. Themify had great themes. And so I went and I looked and I watched their demo and I was sold. So I bought the Themify theme. It automatically, when I imported it into the WordPress host that I use, it automatically changed my blog page to make it look much better. Just the defaults I like. But I'm trying to create a home page where you can go to click on everything about me. You can click on one section that will take you to my blog, and then one section that will take you to the Road Noise podcast page, and then one section that will take you to the Everything Arts podcast page when I get that up. A static front page, and it offers that, but when I started trying to build it, it started freezing my computer. Every single time I would open the builder editor on this thing, it froze my computer, and I'm hoping it had something to do with the internet connection that I had at the hotel room, because it looked like it was strong, but maybe because several people were using it and bandwidth and all that jazz, it was just very slow. You'd have to wait forever or it would freeze completely up. I'm going to try it again tonight when I get into the hotel. The hotel I'm going to, I know, has a good, strong connection, and if it still freezes up, I may have to ask for my money back because I can't do anything with it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I really like the default. I'm Southern. I say default. You may say default. I like the way that it defaults to my page or makes my page look on those settings, but I just don't want to keep it for that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens as far as that goes, whether I have to get my money back. I'm going to try to get my money back on the Thrive theme anyway because I'm not happy with it. I'm really hoping this Themify, I use the Ultra theme. I'm really hoping that I can get that to working right because I really like the way that it supposedly, in theory, works. And in the positive review for this week, I'm going to go ahead and I just mentioned the podcast that I listen to. I'm just going to go ahead and use that as my positive review because this is a podcast that it's been so important to my growth as a podcaster, and that's Daniel J. Lewis's The Audacity to Podcast. The Audacity to Podcast is a podcast about podcasting. It teaches you how to podcast. And I mentioned it before in one of the earlier episodes. I talked about him and Cliff Ravenscraft as podcasters, but I really didn't go into a whole lot of depth. Daniel J. Lewis he's just very knowledgeable, and he gets right to the nuts and bolts. He doesn't talk about a whole lot of fluff. He'll give you the topic. He'll give you a rundown of what he's going to talk about in the episode, and then he'll get to it, and if it's bullet points, he'll just go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and tell you it's no nonsense podcasting about podcasting. And it's a lot of great information. He's got episode after episode that you can go back from the very beginning and start learning to podcast if it's something that you think you might do. And I think that that's apropos for this episode, since I'm talking about recording yourself as a possible way to leave a legacy. Maybe you do want to start a podcast. Well, if you do, the Audacity to Podcast is a great way to get your feet wet, kind of start learning about it. And because I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the ins and outs of how to podcast, and there's so much more I still have to learn, Daniel is a great way to do it. If you would like to check him out, you can go to the Audacity2Podcast.com. I think you can also look up the Noodle Mix Network, and you can see all of the other podcasts that Daniel has in his Noodle Mix Network. He also has a podcast that I'm very fond of, but only records about once a month, called The Ramen Noodle, and it's a clean comedy podcast. Daniel is a very family-friendly type podcaster. You're not going to get anything from Daniel that you couldn't let the entire family listen to. So I really suggest that you go and check out the Audacity to Podcast with Daniel J. Lewis, and that is my positive review of the week. So it's almost 30 minutes for this episode. I hope you got a little something out of that. I feel like I kind of threw it at you. I feel like I kind of shot it out of a shotgun and just kind of threw it out there and see if it sticks. But I feel better about this one, actually, than I did the other two. I just felt like the other two episodes that I recorded yesterday were forced. And while I still have the one with the stories, I'm going to go back at some point and listen and see if it's something that I want to keep or continue on. Maybe I just wasn't feeling well, and so it seemed like it wasn't that great. Maybe I'll listen again and I'll really like it. We'll see. But if not, I'll just scrap it. The other one, the one about the networking, I just went ahead and scrapped it. There's nothing left of it. I deleted everything. And if I go back to that topic, I'll start fresh and I'll do a little more research, so I'll be a little more prepared for you. If you'd like to get in touch with me, and I would really love to hear from you, here's how you do it. I've got a phone number. It's 706-408-7456. That's 706-408-7456. You can also get in touch with me through feedback@michaelblackston.com. I'd love for you to check out my blog. I have a comedy blog, and if you'd like a laugh, I think I'm a pretty darn good writer. Why don't you check it out? Leave me a comment. I'll definitely get back to you with that. Well, usually get back to you on the comments. I try to reply to as many of those as I can, but that's at michaelblackston.com. You can also reach that at funnymessylife.com. And I'd love for you to go to iTunes and leave me a review. And I've got to look at my website to see if I've got a way for you to go there straight from the website, because Daniel would shake his finger at me if he heard me saying, look me up in iTunes. I'm supposed to make it easy for you to, as easy as just go to the website, find the iTunes subscribe button, and go from there. And I'm not sure if I've got that. I used to on the old one, but I'm not sure if I've got that on the website the way it is right now. But if you happen to be on iTunes, you don't want to look me up, give me a ranking and review. That helps me to get found. And until next time, thank you for sitting beside me. I got through this episode. I got one done, and I hope you got a little something out of it. And I promise, next week I'll be more prepared. I promise. I'm Michael Blackston. Thanks for sitting beside me in the passenger seat as we learn to live life 1 mile at a time.